I'm Jim Miles, and I'd like to share with you my own spiritual journey. And it started many years ago, right after high school, when I entered the Society of Jesus, the Jesuit order, and I spent 9.5 years studying to be a Jesuit priest. Then I left Church Street without being ordained and went on into, became a stockbroker, and then from there moved on from Wall Street to commercial real estate. But throughout, when I left the Jesuits, I left with a deep feeling of a connectedness with all things, but I didn't have the proper framework that was relevant for me. And but throughout my career as a stockbroker as well as a commercial real estate broker, I would hear training tapes that would tell me more and more about things that were beyond what our senses tell us.
So Jim, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you come from?
Well, I was born and raised in southern Maryland back in the late 30s, and from a family that had been distinguished by governors and generals in the Civil War, as well as after that in the state of Maryland.
And how did that influence you in your early decisions to pursue the priesthood?
Well, I think because of my father's brother, who was 10 years my senior, entered the Jesuits right after high school, and at the time he was 18, I was 8. I could tell and see and feel a difference when we would attend the novitiate at Wernersville, and I could see the change in him. And it was something that was transcendent. It was a peace, a quietness. I could see a certain kindness in his eyes, and a happiness to which I was attracted. And throughout high school, because I was very active in the Altar Boy Society and was on the altar for so many religious functions, I became very comfortable there. I was attracted to it. And I was encouraged by the good sisters and the brothers to become a Jesuit or a priest, and I elected to go into the Jesuit order in 1958 here in the South.
So talk about the Jesuit priesthood. What is it like?
Well, the Society of Jesus, the ultimate mantra of a Jesuit is to become an alter Christus. That's Latin for to be another Christ, to become Christ-like. It is known as the Society of Jesus. And I remember telling my spiritual advisor at the time that here I'm in a group of men who are valedictorians, salutatorians from the 400 and 500 graduating classes of the big urban Jesuit schools throughout the South. And I was just in the middle of a class of 26 from the country of southern Maryland. And I would say, Father, how in the world can I expect to be Christ-like with all these brilliant men from the urban areas? He said, Jimmy, just fake it until you make it. And there was a lot of wisdom in that, because as you begin to act and pretend and feel as though you were a priest of God, Christ like Christ, as we understand the stories of him, you begin to change with external constraints and external motivation, if you will, if that gets another way to affect the internal. And of course it was the internal that was most important in the Jesuits, and they emphasized so much contemplation, meditation, prayer life.
Did your family encourage you to pursue the priesthood, or was this a decision that you came up with on your own?
I think quietly they were supportive of it. My mother probably wished that that's what I would do, but they were not overt about it. It was a decision that I was to make, and they were supportive. And I remember when I got on the plane in Washington International Airport to fly down to New Orleans, my father said, if you stay 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years, and want to come back, you know that I'll always be proud of you, and you'll be always welcome here at home. So,
how did that make you feel?
Oh, I felt great. I mean, my father was my hero. He was quiet. Though uneducated formally, he had the respect of his peers and people that were in high places, public servants in the corporate world.
You mentioned to me that you were very interested in the works of Joseph Campbell and the whole premise of mythology. What is mythology to you?
Well, I think mythology are legends and stories that may or may not be true, but they are stories usually about the origin of man, the purpose of man. They usually incorporate activities of a hero, and I think myths can serve as signposts, as examples, as metaphors for each one of us in our own sacred journey, which I believe each one of us here on the earth plane is involved in, whether we're consciously aware of it or not. I think that I really became more conscious of it maybe 25, 30 years ago, that I was on a spiritual journey more than just what I experienced in the Jesuits. I think the Jesuits planted a seed in me. But what I saw, and I understand that Joseph Campbell's background was, he grew up in the Catholic tradition, as did myself. And I think so much of what I understood from Joseph Campbell, especially in his interviews with Bill Moyers, was that he was Joseph Campbell was articulating the timeless, endless, ageless wisdom in those 6 beautiful hours of conversation. He flavors it with Jungian psychology and the various stories of all the religions, but whether you study the esoteric traditions of the Judaic religion, which is in the Kabbalah, or the Gnostic Gospels, the mystical traditions of Christianity, or Buddhism, or Hinduism, or Zoroastrianism, and the esoteric, the inner mystical teachings of those religions, or the nature religions, in fact, they're all pointing towards you are an individualized, localized expression of the divine. And I think that's what Campbell was articulating. And the concept of a myth of the hero's journey of each one of us. It's not just the Christ or the Buddha who may be way showers